Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Learning Torah Lishma. Today, we want to talk a bit about getting married, and this is, of course, applies to all ages, but this is more focused, it's more geared towards the younger generation, from, the 18, the 25, the 30, people that, are still very young and and a little bit of wisdom, caution, a little better understanding of the sugya. And I'm going to be speaking about it from an orthodox lens. In the Goyish world, in the Gentile world, they have their own, issues and difficulties. And, a lot of men are being hurt. You know, I would say in the Jewish world, overall, it's a bit better, a lot better. But since there's so many people being hurt, it's still a lot. So let me explain a bit. Like in the Goyish world, uh, the chances of divorce, uh, uh, well, there are certain categories that they, in the Goyish world, that they have a low chance of divorce. And a guy that's smart will try to uh, stay in that category and marry a girl or a man in that category. But when we're talking about percentage wise, overall, what's happening, usually the first marriage is for sure a divorce. When I speak to people that, I speak to millionaires that do the financial planning for rich people, they I'm talking about religious Jews that do financial advising when it comes to when they're dealing with someone that's not a Jew. They know that most probably we're talking about 90% chance they're going to get divorced. So with that, so if it's before they got married, they try to give them a little advice, make a prenup, a trust, different things. You understand, to prevent uh, the government from stealing their money and giving it to the woman. In rare cases, sometimes it's the opposite way. You understand? But even in those rare cases when the woman, according to the law, would have to give money to the man, usually the man don't make the woman end up doing it. Very rare cases. I remember there's some movie star, some black movie star that she divorced the man, and and she was making a lot more than him, and she had to give to him. You understand? And he actually pushed her and didn't allow her to get out of it. And but usually men, the rare scenarios that is, usually they don't push, and the woman doesn't end up paying. You have rare scenarios that it does happen. You understand? So they have their own challenges, and when I spoke to these people that are in charge of their investings, they said if they're not married yet, then they tell them the truth, and they tell them how to, if something happens, how to prevent a catastrophe. And a prenup is just the basics, but really, putting stuff into a trust and not linking her to it, unless at the time of death you're married together, right? There's so there's so a prenup is really just the basic, most basic way to protect you, but really it's you know after a few years, the judges, unfortunately, they won't they'll just ignore it, you understand, even though it should be legally binding. So they deal and they help them to do things in a more advanced way. If they're already married, it's already, which is usually the case, then they just undercut, they set things up in a way that when that bad day comes, which is a 90% chance that it will, that there'll be a path. You understand? There'll be a path that was already set up before. And that's, what they do. Now, going into the Jewish world, in the non-Jewish world, of course, you have, the Dave Ramsey and his company that would say a prenup is not good, and they, unless there's a big discrepancy in how much you and her make, they don't advise a prenup. But overall in the Goyish world, a prenup is pretty much accepted. Now, the women, 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 women connect, men connect physically, you meet each other. Women connect like in some spiritual realm. Like all the women, for some reason, will be, if you try to even mention prenup, they give you this fear to even talk about prenup. And if you dare say it, it's like almost a for sure no that we're not going to get married. So that's the way they treat, that's how they go about it in the Goyish world. So it's a bit hostile. It's a bit hostile. And really, today, it's, a person it's creating a stumbling block in the marriage if you don't do a prenup. Because without a prenup, without any level of protection, this gives the woman so much power that most of the time she can't even handle it, and she just ends up divorcing you. The fact that she's going to get so much money for free, that you'll be tied to her forever, and she could go on to another man, that she could get back at you for the little bit of discomfort that you caused her, the revenge. It's overwhelms her, the power. Women don't do so well when they have tons of power. Men do much better at managing power. Women have a very big difficulty, and they usually self-destruct when if things are at least equal, there's a chance. But today it isn't equal. Women are given overwhelmingly more rights than men, and they're believed overwhelmingly more than men. And this toxication of power causes her to self-destruct herself. If things were at least equal, there would be a chance. If they would say that automatically by law, it's not that it goes to the women, but it's 50-50. And the support, because is you support the kids when they're by you, and she supports when it's by them. You understand? That's how it's split. So everybody, other people's hands aren't going into someone else's bank account. When things are split like that's the default, there's a chance. You understand? But when you give the overwhelming power that the woman gets custody and you could just have visits, and that's what it's set at, and you have to fight to even get 50-50. So it's it's it is what happens is women do not do well when you give them something that they're by nature they're not good. That's not their strong point. A man is good at wielding power and being fair and equal. Women are not. Their qualities are other things. And therefore, when you give her something that really, you give her this overwhelming power, like a woman could just say that you did something to her, and you'll be brought in, even though she doesn't have any proof. This overwhelming power is destroys her, and that's and it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. Things must be equal. At least that's, I would say, that to a certain extent you have to, equal doesn't mean the same. It means that the power, the what a man's good at and what a woman's good at, that they should be, that the law should lean into those things, but that's complicated, and unfortunately most of the judges and people that make laws today, they're not so bright. So when you say equal, that means equal, just like if a man came and started saying things, you would say, where's the proof? And nothing's done unless they bring proof. So to a woman, no matter, right? Because she could be crying, but at the same time, women are very good at faking. So she could be faking. You don't know if what she's saying is true. It's the same thing if it's a man came in, he could be crying. You don't know if he's saying the truth. You understand? So things have to be equal. And today, as opposed to women being at peace with men, there's sort of a war. And that's because of the feminist movement that said women have no special abilities. And the only thing that shows that you are special is if you could do what a man does better. You could be a better CEO. You could be a better dentist. You could be a better you could be a better social service person. Whatever the man does, you do better. And that's how you are someone, as opposed to realizing the great gifts that a mother's giving: empathy, care of the children, deep love, nourishing. You understand? Peace, tranquility, harmony. All these things to men today is like, what? That's not a woman, but that's really what a woman is, even though they're so disconnected from themselves. You understand? That it came to a point that they're basically the opposite. I was talking to, there's a certain rich guy, that in a miracle, he somehow got his wife to have 4 children. But he can't get more than that. You understand? And it's not like they could have children and they could be healthy, everything. But she's not open to it. You understand? In a miracle, he somehow got her to have 4 children. You understand? But there's a lot more children that they could have, A woman, especially, should want to have more children. The more, the merrier. You understand? Now, we're not talking about every 9 months having children. That's too much on the body, but in a healthy way. Depends. Some women can have every year. Some women need a year and 3 months. Some women need a year and a half. And I even heard there's some women that need 3 years, meaning they need a 3 year interval. You understand? And I believe that's including the 9 months of pregnancy. They need 3 years. So they need two years and 3 months in between. You understand? And possibly some of those months, it could be maybe a month or two of a pregnancy beginning. You understand? So, you know, a person, just like we talk about, a person needs to understand themselves, get to know who you are, understand from the four natures, what are you? And then how do you use your nature? Are you positive or are you negative? If you're negative, that you could change that. Just like someone positive could become negative. If you're negative, you could become positive. And if you could do that, that will greatly enhance your life, and your whole life will change, because positivity is where God is. You understand? Imagine if God would be negative for too long. He would destroy us all for our sins and for our evil deeds. You understand? So negativity does exist, and sometimes you need to utilize it, but it's something that it's controlled. It's only used when it's needed. It's not a way of life, negativity. Rather, positivity is the way of life. So this is, extremely important. So just like, there's being psychologically healthy, and that means there are many differences between men and women. For a woman, she might need to do this. For a man, he might have to do that. You understand? To be psychologically healthy. At the same time, you have to be physically healthy, whether that's health, whether that's who you choose as a spouse, how you have to be. Today there are great resources to really be able to learn how to tell if the woman is if the bliss that you're feeling with her, the harmony that you're feeling with her, is she just faking it? Because women could fake it, and they could fake for quite a long time. They're excellent at it. Men are not as good as women. Women are very good at faking. So you have to learn how to break through the facade and to experience her true self. Because you could be like, wow, beforehand we were feeling such harmony, and right after you got married, she became mean, nasty, bossy, bossing you around, and she thinks that's what a woman's supposed to do. You understand? Because that's what she was told. That's the way she thinks. And she doesn't realize that a woman's not supposed to be doing that. And that's mean. So what she defines as loving, that thing that the way she defines love to a man, he defines that as being bossy. You understand? So, everybody gets, completely enwrapped in their own understanding, and they're not willing to experience how someone else is experiencing it. If a man, to him, that's bossy, so then don't do it. You understand? Just don't do it. Why do you have to do that? You understand? Encourage him, encourage him, and he'll become a better person. He'll be making more money, and things will happen in a different way. You understand? Just stop. And men have to know that, you have automatically, a man has a better understanding of the woman, because a woman is like a gem. She's like a precious stone, and everybody wants her. But a man, he's like a a vehicle, and he has to really shape himself into into a Lamborghini, into something special in order for him to have any worth. So so by doing that, he learns to understand the world in a deeper way, and included in that is understanding women, in a deep understanding them better, because otherwise the only way to you could approach, but they'll put a restraining order on you. They'll be real nasty to you. You have to really know how to approach a woman, that there should be a chance for you to date her, and actually hopefully get married. You understand? So men have a lot more wisdom. You have to know, when you get married, don't just forget about that. You have to keep the charm on. Don't forget about the charm. Keep working out. Learn how to make more money. Don't become complacent. Become better and better. You understand? And you can't. And there, just because you could tell a man, you're getting fat, and that's fine. You can't tell that to a woman. You have to learn how to do things in a backwards way. You could go to your mother. One woman could tell another woman, or maybe her father, you understand? Or a good friend, and you could tell them. And you could just say, listen, I don't want to hurt her. I just think that if a woman said it, it would be, you know, it would be so much easier for her. So I just want to let you know that she's gaining a lot of weight, and I want to be, I want to be, attracted to her in a big way. I want to be, dying to come home every day, and I just feel that if she doesn't take control of this, that's going to go away, and I want to love her in that deep way. So, you know, eh, men, don't lose your tactfulness. Don't lose it once you get married. In fact, improve it. You understand? And that wisdom will help you to make the marriage anew. Make it anew, as opposed to it began on a high and then it's downhill from there. You understand? You want to keep a certain freshness, a certain newness. Once a month, take her out. Yeah, at least once a month, take her out. Uh, Preferably once a week. Something special with her. Be romantic. It shouldn't be that the only time she felt romance was before you got married. You have to continue with the romance. Don't lose that wisdom. Continue with the romance after you get married. So this is, a little advice for everybody. And, we're talking more what, at this point, more what, a person that's not a Jew, what they're going through. You understand? And I went to Walmart yesterday, and I saw these young men, I don't know, around 25 probably, young, handsome goyim, you understand? And they walked in, and I could feel their hearts. There was a bit of sadness in them, you know, and I totally understand it. They're handsome, they're tall, they were tall, I'm not so tall. They were tall, handsome, put together, but the women treat them like trash. They treat them, like what's it called? Those places where people go and buy time with prostitutes. The women treat the men like prostitutes. You understand? A man has to be strong. And even though you're not a Jew is not allowed to have something before marriage. But even you as a Gentile, a man has to be strong. There's nothing happening between us, intimacy, There's no intimacy happening between us. If you can, even you should take out kissing, as well, if you can. But sometimes that's too much for in the Gentile world. But certainly intimacy, nothing like that happens before marriage. Now it's true, someone that's not a Jew, according to the Bible, they are not obligated. They could have intimacy before marriage. You understand? They just can't have intimacy with a woman that is married. And that includes a woman that moved into a man's house, even though there wasn't an official document of marriage. If a woman moved in with a man, according to biblical law, they are married. You understand? However, if let's say a Jewish woman moves into a Jewish man's house and they did not get married through chuppah and kedushin, they did not have the Jewish marital document, they're not considered married. But when someone that's not a Jew, a Gentile, the woman moves into the man's house, even without a document of marriage, according to the Bible, they are married. So you have to know that's also, Aisha says, that's also another man's wife. And as we talked about before, that this is one of those sins that puts someone into Kaf HaKela, which is worse than hell. It's a place of hell. Is as bad as it is, it's fixing a person. There's a worse place that place is just for revenge. After you have X amount of years of revenge, you have the schus, the merit then to go into hell and actually have purification done on your soul. HS Ish, being with another man's wife, is one of those sins that most likely will make a person end up in Kaf HaKela, into this place that's worse than hell. You understand? So it's very serious. So again, if they're married, and that includes if the woman moved into his house, she moved into his house and they're together intimately, even if she's like, no, I don't want to be married to him, but you're living in his house, that means that you're married. Right? She's not renting a room and they don't have any, and there's no intimacy. No, she's being intimate in another man's house. That means that she moved in for marriage, whether she screams to the top of her lungs that she didn't. If she's moved into a man's house and she's intimate with that man, then they're married. And the only way to break that marriage is for her to leave and not live with him in his house anymore. You understand? So this is extremely important to understand, because we want everybody to go to heaven, and sometimes you're just missing certain laws, and that could put someone in a very precarious situation. Now, when someone's being serious, they're not really dealing with that type of woman. You understand? So men have to learn to be, to not allow the women to treat you like prostitutes. You have to save, the intimacy for marriage. And say, this is only going to happen if we get married. So that's another very important thing that a man can do. Now, again, getting back to these nice boys that I saw, I'm a Jew, they're a non-Jew, so I didn't know exactly. It's easier when I see a Jew that's in a very bad spot to approach them and have conversation. But when I talk to someone that's not a Jew, you understand, I don't know, maybe they're a Candace Owens fan, maybe they're this, I don't know the person, and they might attack me, they might get upset at me, they might scream at me, we're in a public place, I don't know what's going to happen. But let's say it was someone that someone that was a guy that I knew, you understand, and I saw him downtrodden like that, I would try to lift him up, you understand? Give him some advice, you understand? People are being they're hurt a lot, you understand? They're going through difficulties, Uh, a lot of the women today, what instead of building up a man and becoming rich, look at what's his name, Joe Rogan, right? What his wife said, he wasn't rich when I married him, but I saw I could build him up. I could make him successful. Some people that's money, some people that's doing God's work, whatever it may be. Some people it's doing, going to these crazy places and giving out food and water and shelter and educating the people there. Different people can mean different things. You understand? A wife is supposed to be the one that helps you bring out by being loving and encouraging and talking good about you. You understand? Not just saying you, not thinking that the way to make you better is to reprehend, reprimand you. You understand? So this is, you know, extremely, extremely important. And what I want to say to Jews and Gentiles alike, God loves us all. And you have to know that you have to learn to love yourself at least a little bit the way God loves you. And don't just give away. You have to be cautious and careful. And of course this applies to women as well. But in today, the way it works is when there isn't equality, when one side has overwhelmingly more power, usually they end up becoming the tyrant. And therefore, unfortunately, that's what's happening today. At least in the first world countries. There are other countries that the men are giving overwhelming more power. Let's say in Arab countries, you understand? And the women are and the men are tyrants. There's the great, if I was talking to women there, if I was talking to the populace that's being oppressed and how to protect themselves, I would be talking more to women. But in America, in first world countries, most in general, women are given overwhelming power, and that leads to oppression, and the men are being severely oppressed. With responsibility or with more power comes the Satan, the Satan, you understand? He, when he's trying to, test people, if you have more power, then there's more he could test you with. You understand? There's more evil that he could try to get you to do than someone that doesn't have that same level of power. And since women have overwhelmingly more power, they are tested a lot more, and their level of evilness can sometimes be shocking. I remember there's that famous, I think it's the Sherlock Holmes. There's the woman, I remember there was this, someone that was killing, and they thought it was this person and that person. Then it ended up being the wife of, I don't remember, of what, ended up being the wife, and she was, and when she would serve him supper and stuff, it would be actually, she would cook the parts of the person that she killed, and she would feed it to her husband, and he didn't even know. And all these men got that people thought that they were the one doing it. They got killed or went to jail. Terrible things happened to them, and then she got off scot-free. No, and the person who finally figured it out, I don't know if people ever figured it out. I think when you see the video, then I think it's like a 2-3 series video. When you see all the series, then you're able to match it up. I'm not sure if in the video that someone actually matched it up. You understand? But when you see all three, then you could see that it was her all along. So, um, yeah. So this is so a person has to know that being equal. So if a woman was smart, she would be very careful to be equal and not use the overwhelming power that the government gives her, not to use that. Because you start using it, then the Satan, the son, comes along and says, okay, let me test you there. You understand? Be nice. Don't threaten people. Don't lie. Cool, calm, collective. Be loving, caring. And you too, don't give your body away like a prostitute. Save it. Save it for the man of your life, for the love of your life. You understand? Don't throw it away. Don't throw it away. And a man only deserves it if he actually marries you. You understand? No intimacy without marriage. And the man might even be, like, wait a second, I'm a Gentile. We could do it even though we're not married. Yes, but just because God didn't obligate you in it doesn't mean that's his will, and it doesn't mean that it's that you're smart when you don't listen to his advice. He clearly advises uh, no sex before marriage. You understand? He clearly advises that. And for the Jews who have many more commandments, for them it's actually an obligation. They're forbidden from it. So you see that that's God's true will, but he understands that that they have only 7 commandments. The Jews have 613 commandments. And for them to do this commandment, they could manage that. But for someone that isn't Jewish, they could find it, they will, in general, not be able to do it. So therefore, he doesn't command them in it. But you, as an individual, should be smart and not do it, and thank goodness that today, this idea has become, to more staple in the minds of people. No sex before marriage, and that is extremely important, extremely. And if you could do no kissing as well before marriage, that would also, be be a very good thing. You know, getting back, you have to make sure that 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 the harmony that you're feeling with the woman that you're going out with isn't temporary, but rather it's 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 solid. You understand? It's strong. It's real. And many times the woman herself doesn't understand and doesn't appreciate a woman's abilities. And sometimes in a gentle way, you could go you go it over with her, how a woman, her empathy is so powerful. Her love is so powerful. How she could bring children into the world, right? It's such an amazing thing. Does she appreciate herself? Does she appreciate herself? Or is she a feminist? You understand? This is extremely important to remember. Is she a holy woman? You understand? It's very this if she's not holy, who knows how many people she was with? You understand? If she's holy, at least you have a good chance that maybe she wasn't with anybody. And in the worst case scenario, maybe one or two people. You understand? If she's not holy, what are you dealing with her? She has to be holy. And you also have to be holy. Absolutely. You know, I'm always shocked. There's a lot of rich people that they marry the slut of the town. She's very good looking, but she's the slut of the town. And there's these like really rich people that you would think that they would know better, but they were dazzled by her looks. You understand? Oh, a man has to know, even if you're rich, it doesn't mean you know everything. You could be rich and you could be like Jeff Bezos and you lose half his wealth. You know, understand? And the woman that he married was the slut of the town. Or maybe the slut of the universe. You understand? Don't, these are important things. A holy woman, a woman that understands what a woman is and respects that and isn't trying to be a man, isn't a feminist, and a woman that is pious and holy. Extremely important. You know, maybe we'll just stop here. You know, we said, you know, I really was planning to say something else, but maybe we'll do that on our next year, our next Jewish class. We said so much. We'll leave it in this, you know, we'll leave it at this. So if someone needs to have chizuk, they need to be able to strengthen themselves. They could just replay this and give themselves courage. I love you, and Hashem loves you more.